Hey everybody, what's good? Jubitaz back with another video. Now, I've been trying to make these unique videos tailored to each individual member of the Akatsuki, like my Pain or Datara videos for example, and when it came to Kakuzu, I was kinda stumped at first, but then I thought a little more about it, and I think I came to a great idea, because honestly, Kakuzu is very underrated when it comes to his uniqueness, because in the vast array of villains introduced in the Naruto verse, he's actually the most one that behaves like a real-life criminal or even a mobster. Beyond his fighting capabilities, Kakuzu plays a very important role in the Akatsuki as its financier or treasurer. He also has strong ties to the black market and is the gateway to the underground criminal world in Naruto. Though that doesn't get expanded on nearly enough in the series, which is a shame really. So I figured that today I'm going to look over the Akatsuki's treasurer Kakuzu, his connections to the lore and the black market of Naruto, and how that makes him one of the most unique characters in the series. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our work here and let's get to it. So before we get to Kakuzu's evolution as the immortal hardened criminal that basically ruled the behind the scenes shinobi underworld, let's briefly go over his humble beginnings as an elite shinobi in the village hidden in the waterfalls. I've already discussed his backstory countless times, so I won't bore you with the details here. We all know that Kakuzu was assigned a mission to kill the first Hokage, and being given such an assignment alone shows how high his village elders thought of him. It's unknown why he was given the task, but all we do know is that of course he wasn't able to kill the god of shinobi, and as punishment for failing to complete his mission, he was jailed and tortured. Now Kakuzu was understandably angry after having risked his life for his village in order to try to complete what was essentially an impossible task. This was the same Hokage whose DNA alone was so broken that it propelled those that implanted it into their bodies to become beasts and have a massive strength boost. So for the elders of the waterfall to send Kakuzu to assassinate him, they were sending him to his death. And to add insult to injury, to punish him when he failed to do the impossible, Kakuzu had a reasonable crash out afterwards. He broke out of his cell and stole the hearts of the village elders, as well as the waterfall village's forbidden jutsu. This is also what radicalized him to become materialistic and financially driven. He knew that loyalty to a village system led you nowhere. They weren't even a little grateful that he put his life on the line to complete his assignment. That the one thing that anyone could trust in this world was money. That's why from that point onwards, he was always chasing that bag. It was his experience with the shinobi world that turned him so bitterly against it. But the one thing he could get behind was the money contracts. And the one thing that people don't acknowledge about Kakuzu's character enough is how much of a veteran he was. Because the time period between him deserting his village and the events of the Akatsuki suppression arc is vast and spans all three ninja wars. That means that Kakuzu was there to witness all three of those wars. That's why he was presented as the tactical counterpart to Shikamaru, the same guy with the 200 plus IQ, and his whole thing is being intelligent. Kakuzu had vast knowledge and experience. The data book even said that his hobby was reading old and rare books to strengthen his mind. For example, he knew about the Cloud's Gold and Silver brothers' Ninetales transformation, which is something that even the Hokage had known nothing about. He also knew about Dankato, who died in the Second War, because Kakuzu was around since the dawning of the hidden villages. However, since he'd gone rogue and wasn't subjugated to a hidden village's authority, he got to watch all the events from the sidelines and get his money up. He only really got involved with the shinobi wars whenever there was a profit to be made, and otherwise he was expanding his presence in the shinobi underworld. He became a big mercenary on the underground scene, and his specialty was chasing bounties and cashing them in on the black market. That's how Kakuzu accumulated an extensive wealth, so much that he had to hire a personal banker named Ginji to manage his finances. He also became familiar with many different collection offices and office heads like Zange, who Kakuzu visited in order to cash in on Chiriku's head. And as he spent decades working in the black market, he became colder and more merciless. He was known for having a short temper and he was quick to kill those that angered him, and in doing so, he'd add their hearts to his collection and extend his own life, like a true mafioso. And Kakuzu remained this free agent of chaos, collecting checks and gathering money wherever he can until he was approached by the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki were gathering powerful rogue ninja to add to their ranks, so that they could spread their influence in order to achieve their long-term goals. And having an old soldier like Kakuzu that was both knowledgeable of the underground and was a pseudo-immortal powerhouse due to the forbidden jutsu he stole was gonna be quite beneficial to the organization. It also didn't take a lot of convincing to get Kakuzu on board, because the Akatsuki's short-term goals aligned well with Kakuzu's. And while not very apparent on the surface, Kakuzu and Pain formed a rather strong alliance due to their shared interests. Kakuzu rejected the shinobi and hidden village system in favor for personal profits, as after what his village did to him, he believed that money was the only absolute that one could rely on, that money couldn't betray a person. And the Akatsuki's short-term plans were to usurp the great nation's economic hold on shinobi business. The Akatsuki were going to accept all sorts of war contracts, regardless of whom is issuing them, in order to corner the war market and form a monopoly. Pain himself was a victim of the great nation's greedy capitalistic warmongering, so the Akatsuki was there to challenge the great nations and hit them where it hurt, their profits. And Kakuzu could get behind all that. To him, that was the perfect venture. It was the opportunity of a lifetime for a money-hungry tycoon like Kakuzu. That's part of the reason why he was semi-loyal to Pain. He respected his vision about cornering the war market. That's why he was subservient and always scolded Hidan when it came to following Pain's orders. And that's also what pissed Hidan off even further, since Hidan had no interest in money and he saw Kakuzu's greed and Pain's supposed prioritization of profits as blasphemous. Of course, Pain's true desires lied beyond just profits, and he was really just doing this as a way to smite the great nations for all the destruction they rained on the smaller nations, but for now, Pain and Kakuzu were on the same page. Pain even assigned Kakuzu as the Akatsuki's personal treasurer due to his interest in finances, and he even allowed him to complete side quests that were unrelated to the Akatsuki's main goal of capturing Jinchuriki in order to augment the Akatsuki's finances, even if that put them slightly behind schedule, just like the duo's pit stop by the Fire Temple to capture the former member of the Guardian Shinobi 12, Chiriku. However, Kakuzu still put the interests of the Akatsuki ahead of his own at times, like when he abandoned the larger bounty on Asuma's head and got Hidan and himself to depart so that they could assist in the sealing of the Two Tails. Kakuzu's likely the individual that allocated funds to the Akatsuki's resources, was likely involved in bringing in many of the war contracts that the Akatsuki executed, since he was likely the one to discuss the financial aspect of those war contracts with the clients, and I'd put him behind only Zetsu and Pain in the hierarchical order when it came to delegating the individual missions to the Akatsuki duos. The Akatsuki likely received a lot of their business from the black market, at first at least, and it's most likely Kakuzu that served as a main point of contact. Now, by the time that Kakuzu was killed, his job was more or less done in the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki had already amassed all the capital they needed and had fully turned their sights onto the tailed beasts. Like I said before, collecting all sorts of war contracts was only the Akatsuki's short-term goals, and their true ambitions lied beyond that. And now, a lot of people had pointed out in my latest video how nerfed was the Akatsuki, that Kakuzu was basically defeated by the plot and thrown into the trash just to be a milestone for Naruto's journey, or for Naruto's progression, which I believe is a fair assessment. How the genius of over 90 years of battle experience couldn't see through a simple distraction devised up by a fatigued Naruto on the spot. However, you could say that Kakuzu's defeat being rushed is an objective fact, as according to many sources, Kishimoto was kind of ill when he was working on the Immortal Duo arc and had to rush it a bit in order to keep up with pacing constraints and the deadlines of his publishers. That he wanted to give Hidan's scythe more caveats, and expand the duo's backstory a bit more, and he tried to make up for it with their entries in the databook. So you could say that Kakuzu was literally defeated by the plot no jutsu, and that's kind of the reason I made this video, to highlight the cool aspect of his character, because out of all the Naruto villains, he's truly the most one that resembles a real life criminal or gangster or mobster. And that's also why I believe he's one of the most underrated in the group. His backstory that explained his motivations, his profit-oriented baller mindset, his connections to the black market. He might not be as flashy as Deidara and Sasori, but there's no denying his character quality as a villain. And that's all I wanted to highlight in today's character analysis. And now, if you guys want to see more character analysis videos, then I highly suggest you check out my character analysis playlist, and make sure to check out some of the more recent videos as well. I've been putting out a lot of content as of late. And other than that, I'll see you guys at the next time. Peace out.